Welcome to part 7 of my 9-day bike trip series exploring the small towns and agricultural scenery of southwestern Ontario. In this segment I ride from Pinery Provincial Park to Wildwood Conservation area and pass through the communities of Lucan and St Mary's along the way. So today is Friday, May 25th, 2018, and my day began at my campsite at Pinery Provincial Park. I'm glad to see that the spare inner tube I patched last night is still holding its air. As I was packing up my tent, I discovered that I had been camping right next to a chipmunk's burrow. I had everything packed up and was on the road by around 9:30. The temperature is already about 25 degrees Celsius and the forecast predicts it'll be a very hot day today. This water body is called the Old Au Sable Channel, and in my last video I explained how the Au Sable River historically used to flow through this channel. On this trip I've been carefully observing the plants and keeping my eyes out for poison ivy, which is a plant which can cause a severe itchy rash. After encountering several look-alike plants in my travels, I'm pretty sure this here is poison ivy. After about a 5-kilometer ride, I passed the gatehouse and was at the exit of the park. I turned left onto the multi-use trail which follows Highway 21, then after a short distance I took a right turn when I reached Greenway Road. The speed limit along this road is actually 90 kilometers per hour, but there's very little traffic which makes it enjoyable to ride on. There are quite a few wind turbines through this area, and the wind is quite a bit stronger than yesterday. I'm now heading in the southeast direction, and thankfully the wind is behind me today. This is another segment of the natural path that the Au Sable River used to take. I've now crossed into the county of Middlesex, and the new municipality I'm in is called North Middlesex. Typically the wind turbines are set quite far back from the road, but this one is really close. This model of wind turbine is a General Electric 1.6-100. On the right here is the Greenway Co-Op. In agriculture, farmers are often members of a co-op like this one, where they can pool together and share their resources. After passing through the small community of Greenway, the road got slightly more busy because it merges with Highway 81. But that only lasts as far as the next small community, which is called Corbett. There are a lot of farmers working out in their fields today. This tractor is towing a seed drill, which is sowing seed into the field. The yellow tanks on top are for adding fertilizer. This tractor is all set up to do some cultivating. I'm now passing through the small community of Mt Carmel. The direction I'm heading on this road is due east. This road is actually the border between Middlesex County and the one which is north of it called Huron County. This thing on the left is the Centralia grain elevator where farmers can take their crops to sell. Eventually I got to Richmond Street where I turned and headed south. This is by far the most unsuitable road for biking that I've ridden on so far in this trip. There's a specific location along this road that I really wanted to see, otherwise I would have planned my route for today very differently. The location I wanted to see is this place here. For many years it was famously known on YouTube as David's Farm. It's a place where many crazy contraptions were built, including the redneck roller coaster. It's also the location where many ridiculous stunts were performed, including the Winnebago jump which left one pug life with a broken back. The David's Farm YouTube channel was shut down many years ago, but I still have lots of memories of watching those videos back in my university days. So from there I continued riding south along Richmond Street. At the community of Cladaboy, Richmond Street curves around and briefly heads east before continuing with a southeast heading. This here is one of the branches of the Au Sable River, which is much further upstream from where I crossed it yesterday. Here I'm just starting to enter into the community of Lucan. The time is around 11:45 now, and I'm looking forward to finding somewhere to stop for lunch. Lucan has a population of less than 2,000 people, and it's part of the municipality of Lucan-Badolph. The restaurant where I stopped for lunch is called Pad Thai, although they just recently changed their name from the stuffed zucchini. I ordered the Thai red curry, which is one of my favorites, and it was really delicious. It's really nice being inside and having a chance to cool off from the hot sun. The temperature is now above 28 Celsius, and there isn't a single cloud in the sky. I continued southeast along Main Street so I could see the rest of Lucan, then turned and headed north along Saintsbury Line. It's nice being on a quiet road again after riding along Richmond Street for so long. When I got to Fallon Drive, I turned and headed east. It's certainly a popular day to be out with your tractor. It feels like there's no wind today, and that's because the wind's right behind me. The road I'm crossing here is called Mitchell Line, also known as Highway 23. I'm now entering the small community of Granton. The reason that I refer to many of the places that I pass through as communities is because although many of these places were originally established as villages or towns, they have now all been amalgamated into larger municipalities. I took a right turn onto Granton Line, then made a left onto Awmik Drive, which is a gravel road. I passed a transport truck carrying a big load of straw. I eventually reached Clarke Rd, where I turned left and briefly headed north. When I reached Whalen Line, I turned right and rode in the southeast direction. This road is the boundary between Middlesex County and the next one I'll be entering into, which is called Perth County. This very small community here is called Prospect Hill. I made a left turn onto Perth Road 139 and I'm now heading in the northeast direction. I'm typically finding that when I cross from one county into the next, the roads are often oriented at a different angle. After enjoying a nice downhill, I had a bit of a hill to climb back up the other side. I've really been noticing that the terrain has been a lot more hilly the last few days than it was near the beginning of this trip. Generally speaking though, southwestern Ontario is still quite a relatively flat place. After this curve here, Perth Road 139 continues in the east direction. I'm now just passing through the small community of Rannoch. The municipality I'm in is called Perth South. The Ontario provincial election will be taking place in about 2 weeks, so that's what these campaign signs are for. I'm now entering into the town of St. Mary's. Unlike many of the other communities I've visited in my travels, St. Mary's has never been amalgamated into a larger municipality and maintains its independence as a self-governed town. St. Mary's has a population of less than 8,000, but they still have their own mayor and 6 town councillors. Prior to this trip, the only thing that I knew about St. Mary's is that it's the home of the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. But when I arrived, I was completely blown away by its natural and historic small-town beauty. St. Mary's was first settled in the early 1840s at the junction of the Thames River and the Trout Creek. It has a nice historic downtown strip with several interesting independent shops. This beautiful limestone building is St. Mary's Town Hall, and it was built in 1891. Sitting next to it was an old outdoor piano which said, "Play, relax, enjoy." Don't mind if I do. I stopped there and played for about 20 minutes, and it was the perfect break from riding. My campground is only another 6 kilometers away, but it's only 3 p.m. and it seems too early to check in already. Instead of heading straight there, I decided I would go and check out the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, which will give me a nice break from the hot sunshine. Unfortunately, the museum doesn't appear to be open and is possibly closed right now, undergoing some renovations. So instead, I just made my way out of town towards my campground for the night. Everywhere I go in St. Mary's seems to be either up or down a steep hill. I did my best to try and select the flattest route to get back on the highway. Tonight I'll be camping at Wildwood Conservation area, which is about 6 kilometers east of St. Mary's. Since it's a conservation area rather than a provincial park, I'm expecting the facilities to be fairly similar to the places where I camped on day 4 and day 5 of the trip. The temperature is now above 28 degrees Celsius, and although I'd certainly appreciate a swim after this sunny day of riding, I'm not optimistic that Wildwood will have swimming options available today. The road I've been riding on is called County Road 9, and there's a traffic circle where it intersects with Highway 7. And just beyond the traffic circle is the entrance to Wildwood Conservation area. So I stopped in at the gatehouse and purchased a camping permit for the night, then proceeded to my campsite. After arriving there, I dropped off a bunch of my stuff, then got back on my bike to ride to the beach. Despite my earlier assumption, Wildwood does have a place where I can swim today. The water body here is called Lake Wildwood, which is technically a reservoir, but it's a very large reservoir, and the person at the gatehouse told me it's safe for swimming. Her only warning was that the water will be quite cold this early in the season. Little did she know I've already swam in Lake Erie and Lake Huron this week. It's certainly not the nicest beach I've ever swam at, but it sure feels amazing to cool off in the water. Immediately after filming this clip, I came back in from the water so I could shut off my camera, but somehow I ended up dropping the camera into the lake. It was fully submerged and I grabbed it out as quickly as I could, but this camera is not waterproof at all. I did my best to shake the water out of it, then left it in the hot sun to dry. Thankfully, it's a 6-year-old camera and doesn't really owe me anything at this point. I've also brought a spare camera with me on this trip, which uses the same battery packs and memory cards. All of the clips you'll see for the rest of this video series will be filmed with this newer camera. I'm instantly noticing that it has better optical zoom than my older camera. After I got my campsite set up, I got on my bike and headed back into the town of St. Mary's to find a place to have dinner. I retraced the same route back through the traffic circle, then along County Road 9 heading in the west direction. When I'm planning a bike trip, I typically aim to camp at places which are relatively close to a small town where I can ride to for dinner in the evening. Sometimes it means you have to backtrack a bit on a part of the route you've already traveled, but it's nice not having to worry about cooking or cleaning, and also not having to carry any type of cooking equipment. I also find that you don't really get to properly experience a small town unless you eat a meal there. This is the St. Mary's train station, which is still a functioning station on the Toronto to London Via Rail line. St. Mary's, the town worth living in. Erected in 1899, this is St. Mary's original water tower. Notice that the base of the tower is made of solid limestone. St. Mary's is also known by the nickname the Stone Town because there are so many beautiful limestone buildings here. There's a natural abundance of limestone in the surrounding area, which also helped to give rise to a company called St. Mary's Cement, which now produces cement all across North America. I'm still completely in awe of the beauty of this small town, but maybe I was just influenced by the slogan on the water tower. Before dinner, I decided to run a few errands. This building has both a Canadian Tire and a Foodland grocery store in it. I checked at Canadian Tire to see their selection of bike tires. The only 26-inch tires they have are knobby mountain bike tires, which won't be suitable for my bike. If you recall from yesterday's video, I'm still riding on a rear tire which has a damaged sidewall and crossing my fingers that it won't fail on me before I can replace it. I also stopped at Foodland to grab some breakfast supplies, then proceeded to a restaurant called Little Red's Pub and Eatery for dinner. It seems to be a very popular spot, and the only seating they had available for me was at the bar. I had a nice conversation with one of the chefs who was curious about my trip and the route I had taken into town. I ordered the bison burger with fries, which was really tasty. It even came with some homemade ketchup. While eating dinner, I did some research on the history of St. Mary's, and in the process I realized there were still some more landmarks in town that I wanted to see. Of course, that meant climbing up a few more very steep hills. The Grand Trunk Railway line used to pass through St. Mary's, and the line has now been converted into a recreational trail. This includes the Sarina Bridge, which spans the Thames River and gives a really nice view overlooking the town. The bridge was originally built in 1858 and was restored and opened as part of the trail 140 years later in 1998. It's such a calm, still, beautiful summer evening. Down on the water below I could see a young family of Canadian geese. I also spotted a beaver swimming, who was carrying a piece of wood to a beaver lodge and then returned back for another load. I also saw a large snapping turtle swimming down there in the same water. So my visit to the Sarnia Bridge was well worth it, and I'm very confident in saying that St. Mary's is my favorite town I've visited so far in the 7 days I've been traveling. I really love living in the city, but if I ever decided to move to a small town, St. Mary's is definitely one I could see myself enjoying. Again, maybe the slogan on the water tower influenced me. Another landmark in St. Mary's that I didn't get a chance to see was the swimming quarry. It started out as a limestone quarry, which was later filled with water, and it's now Canada's largest outdoor freshwater swimming pool. The time is now about 8:30 as I'm heading back to my campground. The water body at the bottom of this valley is the Trout Creek, which is the creek that merges with the Thames River where St. Mary's was established. Trout Creek is also the water source which is dammed to form Lake Wildwood, where I swam earlier today. After passing through the roundabout, I'm now back at Wildwood Conservation area. After I got back to my campsite, I had a shower and started getting ready for bed. So including my extra trip back and forth to St. Mary's, I traveled a total of 107 kilometers today. Stay tuned for part 8 of this 9-part video series, where tomorrow I'll continue riding east, passing through the community of Drumbo to a campground called Pinehurst Conservation Area. I hope you enjoyed joining me on this segment of the journey. Please leave a comment below and let me know what you thought, and thanks for watching.